last Tuesday in South Carolina, a 70-year-old man was pulled over for a basic traffic stop. Car, Knight, Bobby Knight was shot for reaching for his cane after he was stopped during a traffic stop. He reached into his car for a cane, and he was shot at several times by the responding police officer at the scene. Luckily, he was only hit once, and fortunately, it is predicted that he will survive the incident, no thanks to the trigger-happy cop involved in this mess. But the sheriff has said that the incident was unfortunate, but he does not consider any of the cop's actions to have been inappropriate or out of place. Obviously, the officer's life was in imminent danger. This is just one example of many incidences of cops overreacting, becoming overzealous, being trigger happy in situations that don't call for it, and or bullying in ridiculously unjustified situations and taking advantage of their status as police officers and their place of authority. And this is happening more and more often, it seems. Or maybe it's just happening more often because we're catching them more often. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you to interpret. But more often than not, these cops get off with little more than a slap on the wrist. Some of them aren't disciplined at all. There was the teen last week who was shot to death at his front door because he made the fatal mistake of coming to the door with a Wii controller in his hand, and the responding officer claimed that she was certain it was a gun. That happened in Georgia. In Texas, 2 police officers have been disciplined with a 3-day suspension for stealing cardboard signs away from homeless people, which also speaks a lot to how well we treat the homeless population in this country and how we criminalized homelessness. There was also an incident that's coming into the news again that happened in 2012 with 6 cops in Michigan who fired 47 times at a mentally ill homeless man. And, of course, that killed him. The FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice will not charge the officers with anything. This was a result of a call to a convenience store regarding a stolen beverage. The responding officers surrounded the man and had a police dog to intimidate him, and the man, who suffers from mental illness, obviously panicked and was dialing 911 with his cell phone when he pulled out his pocket knife in a futile attempt to try to defend himself, and the cops fired at him. He was known to have mental problems after several non-fatal run-ins with the cops similar to this that were related to his mental illness and tendency towards confusion. There's another incident last January when a schizophrenic 18-year-old was shot to death by cops, and 2 of the cops got off while a third was put on paid administrative leave. I'd like to get on paid administrative leave, frankly. December, a schizophrenic man who was unarmed was shot dead after a car chase with police officers. Last November, there was a story of a cop admitting to making a black mentally ill man sing and make animal noises as the cop took photos and took videos of the incident. And this is all more recent, for people to push for recording and videotaping cops whenever they get the opportunity, even if the cop's doing their job properly. Getting videotape and recordings of these police officers often plays a huge hand in at least getting this information out to the public. So what do you guys think? What can we do about the overzealous bullying cops that are taking advantage of their authority? I have a few ideas, so what do you guys think?
It's obviously we have a problem with the police and they're overusing their guns. The kid with the Wii remote is super gratuitous because she had to have seen him quickly with the remote and pulled the trigger, which means she had her gun out as soon as she went to the door. Like, she didn't even wait for the kid to open the door, which it's just ridiculous. And they reported that she was sad after, oh, well, that brings the kid back to life, I guess. But yeah, so we just it's just they're pulling like when you pull your gun out for every situation, you're going to fire in a lot of situations, and a lot of those times it's not going to be justified. Like this has to do with basically like they have to go back and reteach the escalation of force idea because they seem to always have their gun. The guy who went back to grab his cane, like I that one sounds worse than it is because he was reaching in the car for something, and the police are very like weary of that, like as an idea. But the Wii remote sounds like one of the more gratuitous cases. It's just that they're always pulling out their guns and they're always taking the safety off, and eventually they're just going to shoot people that don't deserve to be shot, and when you shoot people they tend to die. So it's really about the police relearning their escalation of force and like when to escalate force, and they're always at deadly force to start every situation is how it seems.
But it seems like these in many areas and many police forces, they encourage use of deadly force. Jordan, what do you think?
It's also that they have what you call it. They have a new mentality among the police. Like the new police mentality is no matter what, you the officer go home. It's not protect and serve. So if you're only concerned about yourself going home, then you are going to escalate force more quickly. And like I think you have to kind of reset that mentality. Like it's not about the officer going home. Like that's great. I don't want them to not go home safely. Like I want that to happen for them to be safe and all that. But it should be about this crazy new liberal or libertarian notion of protecting and serving instead of just protecting yourself.
Now, I grew up to believe that the police officer's main job was to protect and serve. That's what they say. But in a kind of U.S. Supreme Court decision declares that the police officer's main job is where they don't have a job. They don't have a requirement to sit and protect. Their only requirement is to uphold the law. Well, that shows you the mentality that they have right there. It's not a protect and serve mentality. It's not for the betterment of the people in the community. And for some of them it is. Granted, I've known many good cops, but they often get outshined by those who would rather use their authority to become bullies of society rather than advocates for the lesser man.
Yeah, totally.
So, Jordan, what do you think?
Well, yeah, this is like for me. This is it's tough for different reasons, and those reasons are on different ends of the spectrum. Like so, for like part of this is like my knee-jerk reaction is to get angry, and look at these victims and see cops get slaps on the wrist, and be like, oh, there's no justice, which is true, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like what I need to be interested in is not like getting my emotional porn fix, but like what actually fixes this problem. And we've had this same discussion on this show before, like whenever it comes to violent crimes, what fixes violent crime isn't draconian measures against violent criminals who have already committed the acts. It's programs, it's a system in place to stop them from committing the acts in the first place. Whether that's rehabilitation or poverty elimination, whatever it is. So I think the same thing's true here. Like there is a problem in the police force today, with escalation of force too quickly, with a lack of accountability, with all these things. And I'm not trying to belittle that or say that shouldn't be there. So please don't take these comments this way. But ultimately, the problem is way before that. Those are symptoms. The problem is we've got a lack of training for police officers. They are not equipped to properly handle the situations that we ask them to put themselves in and day out. So as sympathetic as that was to police officers, I think how I'm about to flesh that out will be decidedly less sympathetic. But part of it has to go like with what Sean was saying with escalation of force. I don't necessarily have that much of a problem with the shoot to kill training for a couple of reasons. One, the big reason is you don't want a wounded armed person, like it's a cornered animal mentality. Like people do the most dangerous things when the outcome or the outlook is the most bleak. But then also, we've got to realize, and this is why libertarians believe what they do. At the end of the day, like if we're going to have a government service, an essential part of that government service is whether or not it can stay funded. And if cops are constantly in lawsuits and all the budget is getting tied up in legal battles over people who were wounded in gunfights, then cops can't do their jobs. So there's two different reasons. One is an unfortunate budget reality, and the other one is a legitimate protecting the lives of these police officers who are supposed to be protecting our lives. But all that to say, like, you have to change the mentality. You have to, one, train cops to seek to de-escalate tense situations rather than to immediately seek, to defend themselves in tense situations. Their job should be to bring a tense situation down and end it. That's my understanding of what a police force should do. It's not, okay, well, we're in this bad situation, let's kill the people who started it. But and so, like, what that means is some cops have to put themselves in situations that are a little bit more dangerous and act in a way that doesn't necessarily defend themselves as well, but that's part of the deal. Like, if you're going to say, I want to be a cop, what you're saying is, I'm going to willfully put myself in these situations. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you shouldn't be a police officer. And that's one reason why I'm not a police officer. I don't think I'm prepared to do that. So that's part of it. And Sean brought up an excellent point, though, with this specific case we're talking about here. Like, for her to not realize a kid, like you open a door, you're that far away from a person, to not be able to process that's not a weapon. You must have already had your weapon drawn, right? Like, to be able to unholster a weapon, draw, aim, and shoot, that should be enough time to process. Maybe that's a Wii remote and not a gun. I mean, I've never been in that situation, but that's what it seems like from the outside looking in. So it really seems like this particular police officer was ready to go straight to lethal force here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that absolutely, it's a reaction. If you can't keep your cool and stay calm in a situation like that, and be more sure than that about whether or not it's a gun, then you shouldn't be a cop. Then you don't have the mentality that it takes to be a cop. And I absolutely agree 100% about there needs to be better training for cops, longer training, better training, and they need to learn how to deal with situations such as with mentally ill people, and learn how to diffuse a situation rather than adding to the escalation of the situation, which seems more often than not to be the case and what happens in these sorts of situations. I think they need to change the way that they deal with, as well as we as a society need to change the way we deal with mentally ill people as well, because I'm also hearing way too many stories about people who are mentally ill and or homeless who are getting bullied and or arrested and or gunned down by these cops, and basically bullied by the rest of society as well. That this speaks to many issues, not just one. There are instances of racism. There are instances of the horrid way that we treat the homeless, the way that we treat the mentally ill, and also all this sort of growing police state mentality that exists in some minds, that it's us against them, instead of them being a part of society trying to maintain the peace within that society. So I think better training is definitely a number one on top of my list, insofar as one of the solutions that we need to address. 6 weeks or a couple months of training does not prepare one, I think, properly for the intense and dangerous job that it is being a cop, and the complex job that it is. You never know what kind of situation you're going to face. You need to be properly prepared for it. And I think that some of these cops need to be psychologically evaluated because they are not mentally sound enough, in my opinion, to handle this job. Either they can't handle it without panicking and handling it emotionally, such as I feel this woman who I think is emotionally un, unfit for the job, who shot the kid with the Wii remote because she overreacted. And then there are other cops that I think need a psychological evaluation because they're bullies, and they might be just sociopaths. They're just this vicious, nasty people, and they shouldn't have this authority. They shouldn't be working as a police officer. But you're not going to see most police officers come down on each other because in many circumstances, they have a protect each other kind of mentality. So,
Sean, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah. The one other thing that I want cops to do, besides get better training and all that, is to just watch an old movie where the police used to say freeze before they shot you. Because you say freeze, drop the Wii remote, or drop your weapon. The kid drops the Wii remote, he's still alive, right? You knock on the door, you say police, search warrant, or police, whatever, and you announce yourself. Kid comes to the door knowing that the police are going to be there. But, we have this weird, we're going to raid you at 3 a.m. mentality that goes along with it. And, only bad things can happen when we break down somebody's door at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're going to get a fight or flight reaction from the person that you're going after. And, that has to stop. And to Jordan's point, they're not trained for kill shots. This is a misconception because police, they're trained just to shoot the torso because it's the largest part of the body. That is the only reason. It's not a tactical reason. It's not anything. It's in the policing book that aim for the torso because it's the easiest part to hit.
That's true. I mean, anywhere you have somebody exercising, practice with a weapon, you aim for center mass because, one, it's where your vital organs are, but two, it's the easiest place to hit. That's a valid
point. And yeah, Sean, exactly. I agree. Where's the warning these days? There's no warning. There's just, shooting. There was no report that woman was that knocked on the door and said, open up, police, or anything like that, or hey, what's that in your hand, or anything like that. That would. Where's the warning?
Yeah, no, and that's
or come out with your hands up. Police, search warrant, come out with your hands up. The kid won't have a Wii remote in his hand if he hears that. That's not happening.
Well, and that's to this specific point. This is all alleged. Let's give that disclaimer. We don't know for sure what happened, but what's being reported, what witnesses are saying, is that all right, so this cop wasn't coming for this kid. It was coming for what, his dad or father-in-law or something like that, who was in violation of parole or something like that. And so anyway,
his father was in violation of parole.
Okay. Yeah. So one, the kid's not even the suspect, or that's not the word, but you know what I mean. The kid's not who this cop is looking to confront anyway. And so the cop knocks on the door, and again, if the witness testimony is true here, the kid says who's there, and the cop doesn't answer. So well, I thought when you were serving a warrant, you had to identify yourself as a police officer. I don't know that you have to say I'm serving a warrant, but you have to at least say, so and so police or whatever, right? I thought that was, if not a law, that was at least police policy. And so anyway, so the kid asks who it was. There's no response, and opens the door, and then we've deduced, again, this is our speculation. We don't know this for a fact. But it seems like she had a weapon drawn, ready to go to town or whatever, and this kid lost his life because of it. No, we could be wrong. Maybe the facts don't bear that out. And if that's, in all honesty, I hope that's true. I hope we're wrong here because the kid still lost his life for no reason, but at least it makes more sense. And I don't know if I'm making sense right now. But if I could shift gears here, there's another reason why it's really important that we get this problem taken care of, and why we need to truly seek a solution and not, just make this another political issue that we yell at each other about. And that's the implications of it. Not only just from the standpoint of us becoming a police state and the cops getting way too much power. Truth be told, we're already there. Like, that's already happened. We've lost that battle, so we need to fight to regain that now. But the other thing, though, is why this should be important, why people should be able to come together on this, whether you're liberal or conservative, is because if I can revisit a theme that I've kind of preached on the show before, longtime viewers, all one or two of you, will remember, like, from my first week on the show, we were talking about gun control or something like that, and I brought up how, like, pre-Ed Snowden and Chelsea Manning, the whole argument, that the government's coming to take your guns, yada yada, which is crazy to me. And even though I still don't believe that, I'm a little more sympathetic of it now because we have seen the government's willing to violate our rights. And some of the people leading the gun control charge, like Dianne Feinstein, are the same people leading the NSA spying, we need this kind of charge. And so they just lend credence to what we previously thought was craziness. The same thing's true here. Like, the more police become untrustworthy and are not seen as people who are there to protect and serve, but people who are there to exercise the will of the police state, the more legitimate the argument I need to take the law into my own hands becomes. And that is a horrible, horrible argument to legitimize. Like, as a nation of laws, we need to have a police state, our police force that is held accountable and does its job, and that job is to protect and serve. And if we allow them to get away with that, not only is that a bad thing in and of itself, but then you legitimize what at first glance seems like a crazy position, and you have people becoming vigilantes and stuff going on, and they're at least somewhat justified in it. And you don't want to justify crazy, like, ever. That's a bad policy to have. So this is definitely a problem that has to be solved.
Absolutely. It's more and more I'm seeing the us versus them mentality. Like, it's just taking over. More and more people that I know are gaining the opinion that there is no benefit to calling the police. You can't trust the police, so don't call them. They only make a situation worse. No matter what happens, don't call the police unless you need an ambulance, and then call 911 for an ambulance. I mean, that's a lot of people that I know that I talk to that are friends of mine. They're like, whatever you do, don't call the cops. They only make a situation worse. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You should be able to have a police force that you can reliably call upon to help you in a situation, not make a situation incredibly worse, fearing that even you as the caller or the victim of a crime may be gunned down by some overzealous cop that doesn't know how to handle a situation correctly. So it's really important that I think that we can be assured as a people that our police force is properly trained in order to handle each situation as it comes.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, guys. Hold on, Sean. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I don't know if you guys have seen this. We've got a regular viewer who is a lawyer that just posted in regards to my comment, and they posted a source for it, that police officers have to announce themselves before they can enter a home. So if they're serving a warrant or whatever, they do. That is a law. It's not police policy. They have to announce that they're police or whatever before they can come in.
Stole my thunder.
I'm sorry, Sean.
But yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up is the case that you brought up, Ree, about the Supreme Court ruling that the police have no obligation to protect you. That's more of a liability case. Like, it's basically like if I call the police and say somebody's breaking into my house and they leave and the police didn't get there in time, like, I can't sue the police for not getting there in time. Like, that's basically what that court case meant. So it's not, I don't want to, like, turn it into something that it isn't. Like, I think the real thing is that we have the internet and we have video cameras and we're seeing abuse more now. I mean, it was probably a lot worse back then, or maybe it's getting worse now, but we can't tell. But at least we're seeing it. Like, I think that's the only thing that's different between now and then. And
let me get anecdotal here at the risk of indicting myself, just to prove my earlier point about people taking up arms and becoming vigilantes. I've always had guns, in my life, but until a few years ago, I didn't keep a gun in my home. I kept them like I kept my shotgun that I hunt with at my parents' house because I hunted, back around where they lived. But then I really hope like Jank or Anna or somebody's watching the show right now. What made me start keeping guns in my house was a TYT story from like 2010 about cops that because somebody's neighbor had it out for their other neighbor or whatever, and called the cops and told them they had drugs in the house. It was like a bag of pot or something like that. The cops like raided this dude's house in the middle of the night and shot his dog. At that time, like we had just gotten this dog, and I love this dog more than my own life. And I was like, all right, if somebody comes in here after my dog, I need to be able to protect my dog. And so I started keeping guns in the house to protect my dog.
Well,
The bad idea. First of all, they have somebody to shoot the dog, so as soon as they're through the door, that dog is getting shot. Like you're not gonna be that quick unless you're prepared for them. But yeah, that's a bad idea, man.
yeah, the prospects of protecting
have
yourself
guns
against the police are rather grim.
Hey, do you guys remember what kind of guns I have?
I have a few things. Like my friend recently became a cop, and I don't have a general problem with the police. It's just like it's not good. Like it's not good to let bad cops go unpunished and to have no consequences for bad actions. It's not good for any police officers. It paints you all in a negative light. It turns the public against you, and you just don't want to have that. So like stop supporting. Like even if you're a good cop, then don't like stand passive. Like don't be passive when you see somebody doing something wrong in your profession.
That's a very good point. If you're a good cop, give the bad cops out there a shit ton of flack. Don't let them make you look bad and give you a bad name. Don't blame the American general public for disliking police officers. One of the best cops I ever talked to said that he doesn't get mad at the American public when they don't trust cops or they don't treat cops in a friendly manner because he understands, he gets it, that a lot of cops are real shitholes and they treat people like crap and they bully and they use their authority to take advantage of people, and they just try to do their best to set a good example of what a cop should be in hopes that, and he said it this way, in hopes of someday regaining the public's trust once again. That's a good cop.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip, make sure to like and leave a comment below, or even share. Sharing is caring. If you want to see more TYT Nation videos, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TYT Nation. Thank you for watching.